So my name is Camilo Vivieros. I'm the director of Jobs with Justice. And Jobs with Justice is a coalition. And we are in the tradition of the civil rights movement, of social movements for justice, and labor movements. And we're continuing the work and the legacy of bringing together church groups, students, labor unions, and community members to fight for economic justice. So I'm going to say a few words about labor and unions and Martin Luther King. And some might wonder what labor has to do with Martin Luther King. Here we are at the State House, and if you read some of the corporate press, you might be convinced that somehow labor unions are an obstacle to democracy. Somehow, labor unions have been perceived as a special interest group representing small groups of people. But Martin Luther King knew better than that. He knew that the majority of people in this country, the majority of people of color, the majority of working class people, the majority of women had the most to gain when they were organized in their jobs, when they were organized in the community, when they were organized in their churches. And this is what he had to say about democracy and labor. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. The two most dynamic and cohesive forces in this country are the labor movement and the civil rights movement. Together, we can be the architects of democracy. So, we're very fortunate to have a holiday that celebrates Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. And many of us here, I have a dream speech on that day. It's often played on the radio, but we don't often get to see the zoomed in images, right, of some of those signs. There's people on the podium that we might not know. And labor has a story there. A. Philip Randolph was the vice president of the AFL-CIO, and he's the man that introduced Martin Luther King on that day. The United Auto Workers were scattered throughout the audience in hundreds. You could see them with their paper hats. You also saw some signs that unfortunately we still have to carry today, right? This sign right here, if you could zoom in and look at that crowd, you'd see full and fair employment, jobs and freedom. And that's what we're saying today, is that Martin Luther King did more than dream. He organized. A lot of people don't know the story of how Martin Luther King got involved. He was born into a family. His grandfather was a Baptist minister. His father was a Baptist minister, and he inherited that. And an organizer noticed that he was an important person that was respectable in the community, but he was standing on the fence. He was not involved organically. His instinct was not to jump into the movement, and an organizer saw the potential in Martin Luther King. And they invited him to a meeting of clergy, and it wasn't easy to convince him to go to that meeting. So the message of Martin Luther King is that all of us are organizers, and our task today is to see the potential in ourselves, in our brothers and sisters, in our church members, in our community members, and to continue the organizing until we have the power or ability, as Martin Luther King called it, to get what we want. So I'll close with one passage that is another timely passage that could be Martin Luther King's statement on what's going on in Wisconsin. In our glorious fight for civil rights, we must guard against being fooled by false slogans, such as right to work. It's a law to rob us of our civil rights and job rights. Its purpose is to destroy labor unions and the freedom of collective bargaining. by which unions have improved wages and working conditions. Whether these laws have passed or not, wages are lower, job opportunities are fewer, and there are no civil rights. We do not intend to let them do this to us. We demand this fraud be stopped.
Out of great trials and tribulations,